is an economic principle that describes consumers or firms' desire, willingness, and ability to pay a price for a certain good or service. Demand illustrates the quantity of a good or service that is desired by consumers and firms. The demand curve, which is an aggregate of all consumers, and illustrates how price determines quantity demanded. Quantity demanded is the amount of each good desired at a specific price point. This demand curve has a negative slope, which makes sense because consumers will be willing to buy more of an item if it is less expensive, and on the other hand, if it has a higher price, the consumers will be the demand won't be as high. The concept just explained and the reason the demand curve has a negative slope is based on the law of demand. Quantity demanded is reduced as price increases, and quantity increases as price decreases. Point A has a higher price than point B. Therefore, the quantity demanded for point A will be lower than point B.
Today we will follow a Cal Poly student, Casey, through a typical day on campus. We will analyze how the concept of demand affects the choices he makes in regards to campus dining. There are various factors that are able to shift the demand curve, and just one that causes a movement along the demand curve. Movement along the curve is caused by a change in an item's price. Typically, Casey buys 3 boxes of chicken nuggets every day at Chick-fil-A in the Ave. Recently, Chick-fil-A raised the price of a box of chicken nuggets from $2 to $3. Because of this price increase, Casey now only demands 1 box of chicken nuggets per day. Now let's address what can shift the demand curve. A change in consumer preference, prices of related goods and services, income, demographics, or buyer expectations can all shift the demand curve. First, we will address consumer preference. If a consumer has a perceived idea how a good or service will affect their health, quality of life, or something along those lines, their demand can drastically change, no matter what the price of the good is. For example, we will address our Chick-fil-A example. While at the Ave, Casey sees the nutritional information for his favorite chicken nuggets. Upon reading this information, Casey decides now to only buy 1 box of nuggets every other day. Now let's move on to prices of related goods and services. Goods and services can complement or substitute each other, and a change in the price of one good or service can cause a change in demand for its complement or substitute. For example, this month Topanga's is offering a special price for their tacos. Upon hearing this special, Casey decides to buy these tacos instead of the chicken nuggets once a week. Now we will move on to demographic characteristics. Depending on the size of a population and the characteristics of the population, there can be demand changes. If the population in an area grows, there will obviously be an increase in demand for many types of goods and services. For example, Cal Poly let in an extra 750 freshmen this fall. When Casey went to Chick-fil-A on the first day of class, the line was so long that he decided not to eat Chick-fil-A that day. Now let's talk about income change. If a consumer's income were to change, their demand for different goods will consequently change. We can usually classify goods as being normal, where demand increases with an increase in income, or inferior, in which demand falls with an increase in income. This week, Casey had a decrease in income. He is an arborist and used to charge $200 per tree, although now he has had to lower his price to $150 per tree. With this decrease in income, he is now unable to buy more normal goods. Now let's address consumer expectations. The expectations of consumers can shift the demand curve depending on how consumers expect prices or output of a good or service to change. For example, Casey expects the price of Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets to raise once again, now to $4 a box. Casey decides to stock up when the price is still $3 a box and store the excess nuggets in his freezer for later. Now let's talk about dead weight loss. Casey goes to Metro and spends $12 to eat at the all-you-can-eat buffet. After just one trip through the buffet line, Casey sits down and eats a moderate amount of food over the course of an hour. Just 30 minutes later, Casey hears his stomach growl and realizes that once again he is hungry. Casey feels that he didn't eat his money's worth, and because of this, he feels like he wasted money. This is an example of dead weight loss.
Elasticity is the ratio of the percentage change in a dependent variable to a percentage change in the independent variable. The price elasticity of demand for a good or service, ED, is the percent change in quantity demanded of a particular good or service divided by the percentage change in the price of that good or service, all other things unchanged. Elasticity reflects movement along the demand curve because the curve is downward sloping. The price elasticity of demand is always negative. If the absolute value of the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, demand is termed price elastic. If it is equal to 1, demand is unit price elastic. And if it is less than 1, demand is price inelastic. Let's take a minute now to address utility maximization. Each individual consumer in our economy is focusing on one thing: utility maximization. What this means is that consumers want to be able to derive as much benefit as possible while keeping in mind that they cannot obtain unlimited amounts of goods and services. For an additional $1 spent on chicken nuggets, Casey obtains 5 more units of utility. For an additional $1 spent on tacos, Casey obtains 3 units of utility. Because Casey is getting more utility per dollar with chicken nuggets, he will want to allocate more of his budget on chicken nuggets.